We're doing something today we don't do often with these 5-minute devotionals, and we're going to read an entire chapter together. In Ecclesiastes chapter 4, there's a theme that I believe runs through the chapter that many of us miss, but I believe it's key to us understanding God's meaning for our lives. Here it is. Again, I saw all the oppressions that are done under the sun, and behold, the tears of the oppressed, and they had no one to comfort them. On the side of their oppressors there was power, and yet they had no one to comfort them. And I thought the dead who are already dead more fortunate than the living who are still alive. But better than both is he who has not yet been and has not seen the evil deeds that are done under the sun. Then I saw that all toil and all skill and work come from a man's envy of his neighbor. This also is vanity and a striving after wind. The fool holds his hands and eats his own flesh. Better is a handful of quietness than 2 hands full of toil and a striving after wind. Again I saw vanity under the sun. One person who has no other, either son or brother, yet there is no end to all his toil, and his eyes are never satisfied with riches, so that he never asks, "For whom am I toiling and depriving myself of pleasure?" This also is vanity and an unhappy business. 2 are better than 1 because they have a good reward for their toil. For if they fall, one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him who is alone when he falls and has not another to lift him up. Again, if 2 lie together, they keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? And though a man might prevail against one who is alone, 2 will withstand him. A 3-fold cord is not quickly broken. Better was a poor and wise youth than an old and foolish king who no longer knew how to take advice. For he went from prison to the throne, though in his own kingdom he had been born poor. I saw all the living who move under the sun, along with that youth who was to stand in the king's place. There was no end of all the people, all of whom he led, yet those who come later will not rejoice in him. Surely this also is vanity and a striving after wind. Did you catch a theme? It's subtle until a careful rereading. We could break it down into 4 parts easily, this reading: oppression, toil, compassion, and wisdom, but that's not the connecting thread. I think if we were to tie these bits together, the common thread is the importance of others. In the first case, we see that the hurt the writer experiences is over the suffering of others. Why will no one help the oppressed? Why do those in power not use their power to help the oppressed? Why aren't they comforted? Oppression and the passive witness of oppression are a fate worse than death. Secondly, we have the section on toil. What is the value of one's work if there is no one to share the end result with? If you don't have a brother or son to celebrate and maybe even inherit what you've worked hard for, if your work only serves to make your neighbors envious but doesn't benefit anyone but yourself, it's worthless. Third is the importance of companionship. Of the 4, this is most clearly about the importance of others. Having a friend, spouse, co-laborer, or other companion in life is a net positive for all involved. Companionship eases the burden of life and also allows us to accomplish a greater good than we might on our own. Finally is the section on a poor wise youth and an old foolish king. The major distinction that is made between them, however, is not their age or their comparative wealth. The major distinction, as I read the passage, is that the youth will take advice. He doesn't rely only on his own wisdom and understanding, but also on the wisdom and understanding of those who provide greater insight and perspective than he might have. In doing so, he rises from poverty into a position of kingship. And I don't think this particular passage is telling us that we should all aspire to worldly power or influence, but that we should always be open to the counsel of the good people around us. We need others to find what the author considers to be success towards the meaning of life. In fact, one of the central meanings of life is relationships with other people. I love you, and I pray today that you would become a companion to the oppressed and meet their needs, comfort them. I pray that you would find someone to share the fruit of your labor with, that whatever gain you may have doesn't only benefit you. I pray that you would find a companion to warm your cold days, to serve as safety in times of trouble, and for you to reciprocate that blessing to them. And finally, I pray that you would find advisors in your life, people to take good counsel from. Have a blessed day.